Hello. I was waiting for the ad break to end. I'm eating gummy bears, so bear with me. But I'm good to go. Get this started. Ooh, in this one. Hello, everybody. I have no memory of where I'm supposed to go, so hopefully this is the right way. We shall see. I kind of missed this game. Got ints. They look like mandrakes, but I'm pretty sure these are ints. Yup. The burpy ones, that's right. Remember? It's just me, or does this look like a little oversaturated? Check something. This is for cropping, yeah. Oh, this was when I was playing fucking... Actually, that might be a bit better for this. It feels kind of dark. I'll just leave it as is, but yeah. Just making sure everything's capturing. But this is the source signal, I guess, which is just a darker, more saturated system. I don't fucking know. Let's go! What the fuck? He's doing some shit. Bam, motherfucker! What you doing? Don't do it! Don't do it! Miss your fucking hands! That's what y'all sound like. This is about to fuck Sue up. Go, Fina, go! Fucking bitch! You blocked it. Oh shit. First, also this guy, hey, what up, B90? How you doing, dude? I'm picking out the gummy bears. New Year, New Me is off to a great start. And then I think Sue is the one that has all the healing magic. Okay, and you? I'm doing alright. Kind of excited to stream today. Oh fuck, I don't have it. Ooh, shit. That's okay. I'll just heal. Oh wait. I got the raw. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I'm just pretty stoked to stream today. Mondays have become an optional stream, and I wanted to stream a lot recently. It's just my dedicated days, which are Wednesday and Thursday, happen to fall on holidays twice in a week, or twice in a row. Christmas Eve and then Christmas was kind of hard, and then New Year's Eve, especially since I worked that night, and New Year's Day.
Not bad, eh?
Yeah. I finished Assassin's Creed Valhalla off stream, which has taken forever. Once again, dope story. That game ends fantastically. It was really fucking cool, but there's no fucking reason that game needed to be 200 hours. Wait, what? Can I just use one? What does this do? Chola. Card inventory item. Let's get rid of... excuse me. Like gloves. Chola. Just get rid of... I don't know. I can't tell which item nobody's using. I have 2 holy maces. I'll get rid of one. So cute, Patootie. Hey, what up? What up, Dry? It's good in the hood, dude. He eats up permanent? Oh, can I just use item in my inventory? This is pretty fucked up. Damn it. Alright, hold on. I have to get rid of something in my inventory. Let's just get rid of Iron Mace. Or, yeah. Yeah. There we go. How dare you assume I live in the hood? Even though you're right. How's your night going? Yeah, I need to use some of my inventory. I hate running out of space. It's like good old fucking Dragon Quest. That's like one mechanic I kind of like hate. Who had that shit? Russ. Oh, wait. Do I not use it here? Can I equip it? Oh, I think I had to equip it. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, that's for everybody. It's fine. It's going all right. That's good. That's great. I was pretty happy that Assassin's Creed won Jay's poll. Sounds funny. Let's go. Yeah, and I got gummy bears, so I'm on top of the world right now. Wait, fuck. Is that the right guy? Okay. Wait, why are you so fucking strong? I gotta use magic on these bitches. I only voted for Witcher because Jay loves that shit. I prefer AC myself. Right on, brother. Just vote. Hell yeah. I've only played Witcher 1. I liked it. I don't know. Assassin's Creed lore is just the shit. Nice. Alright, Fina got fire magic. I think Justin has it too. Nut bomb? Haha.
Oh, flame burn 'em!
Nut bomb! I'm gonna say that next time, you know. I do like a little Pokemon thing. Joey used nut bomb. It's not very effective. Finally a Joey stream. Help us out some weep shit tonight. I just streamed sooner, but 2 major holidays fell in the middle of my stream days. What up, Paul? Sorry, I'm picking out on these fucking gummy worms. I mean, gummy bears. Get him, get him, get him, get him, get him. Get him, get him, get him, get him, get him, get him.
Burnout!
Powerboat? Of course. I got the wildberry ones. These are the only fucking gummy bears that matter, dog. My man. What's up, Paul? Yeah, what are you guys up to? Oh, dude, I got 69 damage on that guy. Nice. Can't see shit. Ooh, gimme, gimme. So it turns out Awa is just fungus. Was about to game, but then I saw you were alive and thought, you know, I could goon a bit. There you go. It's never too late to goon. Awa, and there might be a bit of oversimplification. Maybe fungus is just the way she permeates through Pandora, you know what I mean? I think it's something more than that. It's like special fungus. It's basically the Megamycete from Resident Evil, actually. So yeah, Yeah, I can see that being like just straight up fungus. Funny. No, she's literally a fungus. I liked it. I like Avatar. I feel like that's somehow a hot take to say these days. Ugh. You mean you watched and liked the highest grossing movies of all time? Ugh. A sentient supernatural supercomputer fungus that like stores and backs up your data through their Ethernet cable hair. And then there's other, like, remember there was the tree, and then now they do the underwater shit. So it's like, are there like network hosts? Servers? I'm still so confused as to how Avatar is the highest grossing movie ever. I don't know. Honestly, it's probably just the graphics for the most part, because it is a wonder why they made that much money. But they're good movies. Some people like the world, some people like the lore, some people go into the Na'vi.
All right, we won.
As you said yourself, lowest common denominator. Yeah. Oh, is that what Paul said? I didn't get the whole like Na'vi thing till this one. Where the fuck do I go? This is a goddamn maze. Like Fire Girl? A little bit. She did it for you? A little bit? It was like the Danny DeVito crying meme. It's just like, I get it now. I get it. What I don't get is how to get out of this fucking... I like them. I've never seen them, so not hating. It's just weird to me because no one seems to love them. You should watch them, dude. Throw in Avatar 1. Take yourself back to 2009. I haven't played Frontiers of Pandora. Dude, I picked that up on PS4. Well, 5. I've been wanting to play it, but my backlog is fucked up. A lot of people like them. Yeah. And I heard Frontiers of Pandora were good. Nice. I don't think you should watch them. I can just see Paul being like, fuck, another 2 hours of this? Start him off with 3, so when he sees Fire Girl, he'll be like, fuck! Only 3 hours of this? Or more. Just get high before you watch and try to stay high during. Yeah, and then watch it in 3D on weed. Pretend it's 2009 where it's still illegal.
Pretty easy.
Right way? No. Where the fuck do I go? Yeah. Weed. Have you seen Pandora on weed? Or Avatar? No, I like them a lot. I wouldn't say I love them either, but they're very enjoyable. And dude, they're amazing theater experiences. Like getting there with that Dolby audio or that fucking IMAX shit, dude. The way I say it, and I don't think it's too far off to say this. I don't mean it in like in a demeaning way or disparaging towards the movies, but they're basically just movie tech demos. Fuck. I'll kill this one. No, he's doing shit over here though. And he might. God damn, why is this taking so long? Okay, sorry, the stick's really sensitive. Crazy. I'll just kill this guy though, because he's not in the queue yet. You seen Marty Supreme yet? I've not, and to be honest with you, I have no idea what that movie's even about. Is it good? I'll tell you what, it's no Avatar. I haven't seen it. I have no clue what the plot of that movie is. What's the premise? Fuck him up! Get up! Wait, I can heal, right? I should. No. Do the Darth Vader. No. Heal, and who needs it the most? He's good at ping pong, and then he plays ping pong.
All right.
It's about ping pong and a guy named Marty. Okay. Ah. Well, I mean that's like Whiplash, right? Is it amazing? Because that's a movie where it's about drumming and a guy named whatever the fuck his name is in that movie. He's good at drumming. I haven't seen it. Oh yeah, you did just say that. Well, what do the critics say? Does it have a good Rotten Tomatoes? Not that I use that personally. I just curious what the general public thinks. Idiots. I don't think I'm going the right way. You know how they did Turok Mokto? You're gonna do that with Whales in Part 4. I'm calling it. Tolkien Mokto. The secret about Whiplash is it's not about drumming, it's about personality type and sacrifice made to be great. Yeah, yeah. But then, is there a secret to Marty Supreme? Maybe it's about the folly of man and that's about ambition. Dude, it really is. And the fucking characters in that movie. Like it's like an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. Just watching these two cunts collide. They both want the same thing. You know what? I'm canceling stream. I'm just gonna watch Whiplash now. On my tempo. I love Whiplash. Yeah. Dude, I'm starting to think it might be my favorite movie. I always say Starship Troopers. But Whiplash is my favorite film. You know what I mean? It's cinema.
Not bad, eh?
It's perfect. It's an actual perfect movie. Wait, Dina Myers was in Johnny Mnemonic? I know that. It's way up there. I'll probably go There Will Be Blood though. Dude, I haven't seen that since it came out. And my frontal lobe wasn't developed yet, so I don't think I appreciated it then. I gotta rewatch that. Let's see, what are some of my other favorite movies? I'm trying to think of some that aren't like Marvel or something. Yeah, that could be a dude bro like The Thing, which is true. Hereditary. Well, it's hard. Hold on. I'm trying to pick movies that aren't about like demons, aliens, and superheroes and shit. My personal favorite is Stalker, but that might not be for everyone. Is that the post-apocalyptic one, or is that the games? They're based on the same shit, aren't they? Stalker? Have I seen Stalker? Do I know what Stalker is? Feels dry. I forget. What's your favorite movie? Chat, wanna play Outlast? You, Paul, Lycan, and me. It's kind of a 70s Russian film from Tarkovsky. Hop on a good game like Outlast. But I haven't really streamed, and I'm finally playing this game. I'll have to catch you guys on another night this week though, but not tonight. I'm never gonna finish this game if I don't, you know, get through it. You can stream Outlast. Want to stream this? Wow. Oh wait, Jinx. Now you guys gotta blow each other. No, I would be down. Don't be a bitch. I'm gonna be a bitch. What are you gonna do about it? I'll forgive you if you never finish whatever weeb shit this is. We're already 69ing. Oh, nice, nice, nice. Save room for me. I just quit this and start playing. No, I gotta play this. Because the sooner I finish this, the sooner I can play Grandia 2. And that's like,
All right, we
you're
won.
no longer my Darwin to my gumball. Aw, wait, baby, wait. Don't be like that. Come on. You sound like Jay right now. Oh no, you want me to sound like Jay? DEI and black people, am I right? I don't know if I'm going the right way. Top 3 movies for me: Devil Wears Prada, Pandorum, and Kung Fu Hustle. I never saw Devil Wears Prada. Pandorum is great, super underrated, and Kung Fu Hustle is the shit. At least the 3 that I would love to watch right now. That's fair. That's a good metric. I fucks with that. Where am I, first of all? Am I in the Vista? I'm about to look up a guide. I don't know where I am. I don't think I'm supposed to be here. Where am I? I'm gonna leave and then I'm gonna check on things. Oh, unless... New door? Oh, maybe it does connect back. Okay. This is a solid the man knows what he likes list. Okay, go Ghostbusters, Jurassic Park, and Debbie Does Dallas. Good choice. Good choice. Yeah, I've seen that one. That's pretty solid. Debbie Needs a Razor, but it's pretty good. All right, I think I gotta go this way and then loop around. Quit sucking. You quit sucking. How you doing, dude? What's good in the hood, man? What's up, brother? Also, I have no clue where the fuck I'm going. Okay, actually, this might be where I'm going. This way. Blade Runner, Alien, Predator, such a good game. Bo! What up, dude? How you doing, man? This is a good game. This is a great game. It doesn't make me feel as much as 2 does, but this is a very sweet game. I'm trying to get through it so I can play that one. Play 2. What's up, Shattered Limit? What's up, Bo? I haven't seen you run in a while. You still working on stuff? Side stuff you mentioned? I don't want to spoil. I hope you're doing well. Blade Runner, Alien, and Predator. Those are good choices. So you are also a guy that likes Alien more than Aliens, huh? So is Jay. And Jay actually doesn't really like the rest of the franchise. He just likes Alien, I think. I'm an Aliens guy. I like both. I love both. Ghost Gone Wild Volumes 3 through 5 for me. Why not 1 and 2? Is it because they really found their footing with 3? That was when they found their stride, their voice, if you will. I can see that. What the fuck? Yeah, I feel like 3 is where they earned the word wild. Yeah. Yeah, you get almost like 1 and 2 is like just the precursors of something better. Like Persona 1 and 2. Then 3 came out and it just changed the world. really wish I didn't like wait a month since the last time playing this game because I'm pretty lost. Like I could or could not be going the right way. Legit 50-50. I have no clue. I could look it up. In fact, I might. I probably will. The last thing I want to do is just like find out I'm just like walking nowhere. We got Sean Connery in, wait, what? You got Sean Connery in the third, and Harrison Ford finally says, "That pussy belongs in a museum." Oh, Harrison Ford says it. That pussy belongs in a museum. And then Indy grabs the pussy, right? And then Sean Connery's like, "Junior, let it go. Let it go, Junior." And he's like, "I can get it. Let it go." And then he lets it drop in the abyss. I think it's been a while since I've watched it. No, I think you got the gist of it.
Not bad, eh?
I would watch this movie. Fucking, he does the whole weight change thing, and he's like running away from a big pussy. He just. Alfred Molina's impaled by a bunch of dicks in the wall. And then the finale, when Sean Connery says, "You're the man now, dog," and the whole audience laughs. Yeah. Then he goes, "It's Connery time." And then he slaps her. Open hand, never a closed fist. Always an open hand. And only if you've exhausted all options, or whatever the fuck he says. That interview is legendary. I will quote that and "What are you doing?" till the day I fucking die.
Pretty easy.
You're the man now, dog. Where are you going? I think I'm going this way, and it's gonna loop. Better loop. Leave me alone. I want to keep fighting. Okay, see if it's just avoiding motherfuckers for now. Please, oh please. Pretty please. It's this way. Hear stuff. Fuck off. Fuck you. I don't know if I'm supposed to be in. I don't even know if I'm supposed to be in the ruins, to be honest. You know what? I'm looking it up. I don't give a fuck. I do a little bit, but I'm lost. Roll the man now, dog. Okay. Oh, I think I am in the right spot. Oh, shit. Think? Okay, so this is the cliff. Right. Okay, Dom Ruins Cliff. Gotta get to 2. Fuck. Oh shit, I've been watching my own stream. Gotta keep the tools up. Alright. Motherfucker. Even looking at the map, I'm like, what? AA goes that way. What does this connect to? If that takes me to the cliff, hang on, then okay. then this has to take me somewhere else. So go left. Fuck off. Okay. Okay. Then maybe this isn't the right map because that makes no sense. Oh shit, I wasn't looking. Darn. But according to this, I am kind of going the right way. Okay, actually. I'm annoyed. Right. I really should just skip to 2.
Pretty easy, right, Puppy?
Alright. Alright, so Dom Ruins. 1. And then get to pick up the mana egg. Go to Cliff and use Vine A. Use a switch. Fuck off. I'm trying it again. No! I'm just ambushed. That has to be an ambush. That is an ambush. What was that one guy who was here that one time? He told me where to go. Come back, that one guy. I need you! Fuck him up, Sue!
Pretty easy, right, Puppy?
Wait, is everybody in this fucking movie? Dolph Lundgren is in Johnny Mnemonic? Okay. This is the cliff, right? Okay. Dom Ruins, cliff. It says. And use Vine A. I'm guessing this is Vine A. Ah, dog, I got no idea. I almost don't. I'm gonna save over here just to be safe. No, Vestibule. That's where I'm supposed to be. And then now I'm in Dom Ruins 1. Okay, okay. Ah. And then do it the old-fashioned way, Joey. In the dark. Go southwest? Or I think I'm going the wrong way. Am I going backwards? Use A, and then hold on. Let me see where I'm at. Fuck this map. Fuck this map. Fuck this dungeon. Go on. Circles. Okay, there was the switch. Okay. And move out, go back to the elevator, the lower floor, go east. I don't think I'm doing this right. That's west, see? Unless, oh wait. That's north, so this is east. Okay, it's a little nick on the bottom that looks like a stopwatch. I thought that was the top. It's like in the movies when they're like on a road trip and they turn the map upside down and they realize they were going the wrong way the whole time. Okay, and then Dom Ruins 2. We're making progress. Quick break. Go to Cliff. All Ruins 2 now. Looks like... Ah! Fuck! I need some moves that, like, have range, you know what I mean? I can get a whole group of motherfuckers. I need a Furaga. Sick. No, wrong one. Fuck. So no! Oh wait, how do I kill? Oh, I need the holy bullshit. That's right. Holy mace. Oh, 69, nice.
All right, we won.
Oh, fuck. No, I was hoping it would like hover it and I could see. Alright, that's fine. I'll just right in the corner. Where's the herbs? None of them needs it. It's fucking bullshit. Okay. Okay. Ah, you fuck. Okay, at least I wasn't an ambush. I've never been ambushed so often till today. I need Deadlift here to tell me to quit sucking. I play worse when I'm not being shamed.
What a cinch.
The good news is I'm gonna get fucking rich when I leave this place. Okay, Tom Ruins 2. Where would this be? Is this right? Fuck off. God damn it. Maybe that's why. It's because I'm being impatient. I need a woosah. Woosah. Slime gas. Slime D's, motherfucker. Please, 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 please. Yes.
Oh, flame burn 'em.
You know, there are other games I was tempted to play. Like, randomly. I said this before. I've been playing, random Call of Duty campaigns. And, I finally beat, World at War the first time since 2008. And I started up, Black Ops 2. I did it out of order because I didn't know that Black Ops 1 was even part of the World at War game, like, timeline. I didn't know World at War was part of the Black Ops timeline until I was already, like, balls deep in it, so I was just like, oh, I'll play it later. Oh, that's where I gotta go. What the fuck? They disappear? Like my season? Dog, I just don't know. Okay, it's gotta be this. Wait. Trapdoor, that's fine. Is one gonna trapdoor me or just an elevator? You fucking dare. Okay. Oh god, please. Please tell me this is where I need to go. I didn't sequence break anything. I didn't fucking... already did the shit. All right, I'm gonna go crash out, as the kids say. Yeah, leave the Dom ruins, motherfucker. This is why I should have just quit everything and just streamed. This is why. This is what I get. This is what I get for not playing Outlast with the boys. This is my my punishment. Go to Dom Ruins. Wasn't I not already over fucking there? I don't know how to get the fuck out of here! What's up, Jay? I'm fucking, I'm paying for my sins of not streaming. And playing 5 games simultaneously. Like a psychopath. How's work, dude? Hopefully better than navigating in this goddamn game. Oh, no, there's a guy here. Well, I hope it goes well. You son of a bitch. Whoa, what the fuck? Oh, I don't know if that was supposed to happen. Let me out! Let me out! I think it was this way. Dude, I'm so stoked that Assassin's Creed won. Even though I can't watch your stream until Wednesday, the earliest. Okay, cliff, and then rope, right? Or vine. Yes. Assassin's Creed gonna be fun. Yeah, it is. Now, are you just gonna play Assassin's Creed 1, or does this mean that you're like low-key kind of playing through them, like alternating here and there? Because not gonna lie, talking about it made me want to just keep playing Assassin's Creed. I started Mirage. Mirage is pretty fucking cool. No fights. I just want to get out of here. I'll eventually. I don't know how fast. Well, like I said, right now I'm hellbent on these games. In particular, I really just want to play 2. Especially since I realized the level design in this game kind of fucking blows. The dungeon design. This game is a maze. It's a sweet little maze. Is this the right way? And I really just want to play 2. Cliff. And then rope. Yeah, I think. No, I think I'm making a big circle. Gotta be this way. Please be this way. Oh, the fuck? Oh, you bastard. Like, I'm low-key just kind of tempted to... Because I really just want to play 2. But I'm not going to skip. I can't skip. Not allowed. I won't allow my... I'll lose sleep if I skip. Also, I need to equip these motherfuckers with ghost weapons. Look, we're getting ambushed. And I need to play with the D-pad. Yeah. Justin, you're the man here. You gotta. Oh, you dodged, you crafty motherfucker. Dodge this!
Alright, we won!
Alright! I need to do that every time I accomplish something. That's what should happen. Like, you get late or something, and then you're just like, huh, yeah! And then you level up or something. Just discard it. No, discard this item. What the fuck? Oh, I forgot. They're invisible, so they keep popping up and scaring me. Like actual ghosts. Alright, maybe we can slow them down. Alright. Alright, Justin. I'm gonna bust these ghosts. Oh wait, you're not Justin. You're Justin. Motherfucker! Out of both.
All right, we won.
Oh hell yeah, show me the Grandia black cock. There it is. I just picked it up. It's the POW seed. Damn, green hair girl sucks. It's not necessarily that she sucks, it's that they don't have ghosts, they don't have holy weapons. Justin's the only one with a holy mace. 55. Yeah, Justin, you be my powerhouse. Okay, this is not the way to go. I'm just here working on Jeopardy shit with the homies. I'll be back to slur in a minute. All right, dude. Hey, all right, man. See you in a bit with the slurs. Yeah, I don't even know if I'm on my way. You want to go rub one out? Nice. I don't blame him. I have to do the same thing in my VOD sometimes. Dude, I don't know where this game wants me to go. Let me out. I'm trapped in here. No. Is it this way? Hopefully. Hey, don't touch me. This isn't the same room I was just in, was it? Damn, it is. I'm stupid. All right, any more buttons? Okay, hold on. Where's this? Dude, hold on. It's a map, I think. A bad one, but it's a map. Okay. Okay, this helps. If I'm where I think I am, I fucking better be. It's this way. And then this is a dead end, right? Please be a dead end. Okay. Means I gotta go up here to the right. If there's no option to go to the right, go to the elevator. Okay, yeah, elevator, so I gotta go back up. Wait, and this will get me out? Okay.
Shut up, bitch!
No, you motherfucker! Who did that? And then this is gonna take me... Oh my god. Please, is this it? Let me, no, I want to go home. Let me go home. I hate it here. Some ruins can eat my ass. You fucking map. Yeah, I know, dude. That's how I feel on the inside right now. I'm fucking trapped. I don't want to be here anymore. I can't read this fucking labyrinth of a map. I wanna... No, is it down there? Hold on, let me get back in. Oh, Dom Ruins 1. Oh, wait, actually? This is it. I need to find the road to Dom Ruins, is what this fucking thing is saying. There's like some dying kid I have to find. I didn't see that motherfucker, so I talked to Liette. Liette, whatever her fucking name is. Okay, okay. Alright. And then this arrow pointing that way like its goddamn life depends on it. Isn't helping matters. Don't touch me. Fucking, I knew it. Okay. I don't ever want to go in here again. I'm gonna look at the sequence of events I should be taking. Road to Dom Ruins. We just get the fuck on out of here. See, and the problem is, do I have to be in there? About to find out. Awful fucking map. This game's lucky it's fucking sweet. Alright, road. Okay. Good. Way this way. Don't! Oh. More fights. Just let me out. Don't you fucking touch me! Mountains. Just Fina's house? Rescue humanoid kid. See that mother. This is after you leave the Dom Ruins, you'll encounter him. What? My head of where I need to be? I hate this game. No, I don't.
Doesn't actually.
Motherfucker, did I? Joey, shut up. Oh, sorry. Oh, God, I don't know where it wants me to go. It's the road to Dom Ruins. Alright, it's probably not the most entertaining thing, but I'm genuinely stuck. Like, I did all that shit with Liette, and I just walked past this guy? I don't know. Yeah, it says Ganymede or Ganymede. It's that scorpion looking thing, right? Yeah, it's like a little armadillo thing. Killed him. I love you too. Oh, what it wants. Ooh. Like this exact sequence, I'm lost. Lost, builder. Don't just stand there, help me! Alright, yeah, I killed this guy. He was like the laser armadillo thing. I saw this cutscene. Wait a minute. They're leaving too. I was in there. There they go. Fucking. What? No, they're supposed to be like. There's a cutscene that's not happening. Joey. I know, right? I'm not happy about this either. Ah, don't touch me. Alright, so this is where I came from, which means I'm gonna run this way. Try to dodge everything on the way there. No. Wait, yeah. I just use it. Yep. Don't. Alright, yeah, Dom ruins. And then in this cutscene, they go right here. Keep doing that. They go right by that map or the little vantage point thing here, and then it caused a cutscene. I ain't get no cutscene. Like, did I not? I fought that boss. So confused, bruh. Maybe you got like. Maybe you got it 2 months ago when you last played this game. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Well, I don't remember running into that kid. You know what? I'm gonna watch the VOD real quick. Let me see. Like Grandia Part 3? Okay. It's just me trying to remember. Yeah. Oh yeah, see, I fought that motherfucker. Got the cutscene. Left. Okay. I did get it. Going back to New Parm or prepare. Okay, I know where I need to go. This is good news. This is good news. I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed at myself. But, you know, worse things have happened. So apparently I gotta go to New Parm. I gotta go with this goddamn forest again. Progress will happen. I got a lot of money now. That's a positive. Ah, I could just go this entire wall and hug left. I didn't know it would connect. Can't wait to murder people tomorrow. Oh, dude, yeah, I can't wait to watch that either. Well, I'll have to watch the VOD if anything. And then, yeah, I found the dying kid.
Who would benefit most from two
Dude, for real, dude. I have to follow a clue.
Oh, I just started getting a clue.
Really?
Yeah, I'm totally getting a clue.
Oh, that's giving me a clue.
Fucking raging
Yeah,
clue
I've got
right
a
now.
raging clue right now.
Mine's pointing to the left.
Oh,
I
Frank,
think we better
seriously?
follow
That's
it.
such a
It's like
raging
the
clue
longest
right
clip.
now. I think we better follow it.
Okay, let's follow your raging clue.
Alright.
Godspeed.
This house. What do I do after Fina's house? Single Mountains. Okay. Herb Mountains, that's where I'm going. Okay, get sulfur weed. Okay, okay. I see what's happening now. I hope.
Sure about that?
No. Hey, that's perfect timing.
Sure
That was
about
great
that?
timing.
That's why? You sure? Because after the thing that happened to me, no one could look at me without dying laughing? You sure about that? You sure about that's not why?
Here we go. Here we go. Yeah, I'm excited for you to start playing. God damn it. God damn it. I'm so glad for you. You're gonna be playing Assassin's Creed. Over to the Rocky Mountains. There's a fence back there now. Let's go. That's fair. I deserve that. And it's me this time. A lot of the mean monsters live up there, so the path's been closed for a long time. Just a minute. First, we gotta move this fence. Hold on, there's a faster and easier way. I can take it out with just one of my broad spinning kicks. Whoa, Justin. Ah-ya! Hey-ya! Fuck! Assassin's Creed 1 is gonna be pretty short, I think. Maybe 3 streams. Yeah, it's not that long. It's like 12 hours, and you're not gonna 100% it, right? How long to beat Assassin's Creed Uno? I think it's about 15 hours. But doing all the side content and collectibles can get you to the 30s. 15 to 20. Oh, main story is just about 15, yeah. I'll do most of the side quests, but not the collectibles. Nice. Justin, are you okay? Did you hurt yourself? A little. Go find some sulfur weed. Yeah, I found some. Progress. Fuck. I'm gonna get poisoned and die. Ah! Get him, Justin.
All right, we won!
I get to put my clothes in the dryer now. I don't know, I haven't heard anything in forever. A break? I should use this as my opportunity to go put those clothes in the dryer and go pee. Ah, dude, when I was in town, I should have fucking sold all my bullshit. Motherfucker. Discard it. She just left it. Okay, dude, having finite. Actually, you know what? I'm right here in the beginning. I'm actually gonna go back to the store. We'll go back to town, sell some shit, and then I'll be back. This way? Yeah. I just realized I'm not that far anymore. Oh, store. Yeah. And then you were the one that could sell shit to. The store's weird here. Actually, what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna just double check my inventory. Make sure everybody's up to snuff with their fucking. Oh, there you go. I got a shitload of holy maces I don't need. She could use holy mace, but she can't really because you're ranged. Oh, dude, her attack is 69 with the holy mace. I almost want to change it just on that alone. And what about nobody shoes. Yeah, keep those. Sell a jade maybe. Wait. It's a good one. Okay. Sell everything then. Holy shit. Sell. Don't need you. Don't need you. Don't need half of you. Blue pill. Nice. Justin. Chola. Earrings. Sell them. Shadow moved his head to
give the other more access to his vulnerable flesh. He could feel slightly pointy teeth nibble him every once in a while, and a sandpapery tongue lick his collarbone. His ear twitched as he heard Sonic mumble something. He wasn't sure what he said, but he figured it was something dirty. He waited for the foreplaying to continue, but it didn't.
Jesus Christ. That's not what I expected. It's some pretty hot stuff there. Thank you. That was pretty great. Oh yeah, sell the other jade. Damn, I'm rich. Now let's see if there's any better weapons I can get. Bigger, better. Knife. Which she has. And honestly, I might keep this just in case I get sick of her bullshit. The whip. Just buy it. Give it to her. She ain't using it. And yeah, I guess everybody else is fine.
Shadow looked up once again as he heard a gasp from the Cobalt Hedgehog after a short while. He let himself get shoved downwards again, now used to the feeling of something so large in his throat, but this time, he felt a hot liquid fill his mouth. He struggled, but the tan hands holding him prevented him from getting up.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie, that with this music is fucking insane. It is actually insane right now. Oh man, her movement goes down? Damn. Oh, but it's also uncomfortable. Alright, yeah, we're good. We're actually fine. And then since I can stash shit, because I forgot. Oh no, this is. What the fuck's a roach bomb? Go, sex. Alright, I think I'm good. I almost wish I was wearing my Sonic the Hedgehog shirt right now. This way. His house. Looking for sulfa weed or whatever the fuck. This way. Alright, we're Gucci.
Without another word, Sonic straightened up and retrieved a small bottle of lube from the nearby nightstand before lining his hips with Shadow's. Placing a hand on Shadow's pelvis as he massaged the liquid onto his own manhood, he then slowly pushed himself in until their hips touched. Shadow's mouth was open in a silent scream as the pain in his backside was unbearable. His arms buckled beneath him and he moaned loudly into the pillow placed underneath.
Shut the fuck up. Oh my god. That's gold. Shut the fuck up. Are you, where'd you find this? Or are you actually coming up with that? Both are hilarious. Wait, don't redeem it yet. I have to pee. I have to pee and then I'm gonna put laundry away, okay? I don't know there's a delay, so I'm giving you time. A little buffer. Don't send it yet, not till I come back. BRB. Don't do it, not yet.
Damn, bro. You okay, Carlos? Is your oil okay? I like the sound of that. Oh, he's fucked up. He's like bugging right now. I'll cheese the fuck out of you. Oh yeah. I lucked out. Did you drop anything? That's funny.
I use a voice changer to hide my identity. He's just like Ghostface. What's your favorite position?
Alpha team is flying around the forest zone situated in...
You the man now, dog. Sean Connery. No, one of my favorite lines in the whole franchise of 007 is the "That's a Schmidt and Wesson, and you had your shit." He like shoots it in the back twice. Like, my man. Must be dreaming. But this game is less Sean Connery and more "Hello, baby." I'll make you Randy.
I'm in a room full of gold bullion and bearer bonds. Must be worth hundreds of millions.
Shouted out Pokeball or Pokecatch. That's funny. And then I heard that, I was like, oh shit, like is my viral one going off for a second? That scared the shit out of me.
Which is why I encourage all of you, just go out there and compliment somebody, you know? I do it all the time.
Lower difficulty? Fuck you! I'm gonna lower these nuts onto your chin. Dicks. Dicks. Alright, I'm back.
Oh shit, he's eating your butt. He's eating your
This
butt. Don't eat my butt.
So, Johnny Mnemonic is over. What should I put on next? Super Cop? Should I put some Jackie Chan? Face Off? Fucking... Stargate, Ninja Scroll, Bad Boys. What's the next VHS I should put on? American Werewolf in London. Trouble in the Bronx. What's rewinding? I'll have to think on this. What's my battery at? Oh, we're good. Dude, why do Nintendo controllers just last, like, eternity? Also, look. I got Assassin's Creed the Ezio collection. It was on sale. The whole franchise, basically, except a 1. And up to...
You'll love me again in a second. As Sonic said this, he turned Shadow over so he was lying on his back, his length fully visible. Shadow looked at him, gasping for air, one of his legs curled towards him. It was a rare sight to see Shadow like this, and Sonic felt lucky. He lifted one leg over his shoulder, along with the other one, and pushed himself all the way in one thrust. Shadow groaned and clutched the sheets.
Well, why? Why? Look back to the VOD, man. This is gonna be all hot and bothered right now. Okay, what 007 movie should I put on? Living Daylights? You're Living Daylights guy, right? Yeah, you like... some 007 on. Rewinding. You gotta be kind of rewind, you know? Even if it's just to me. Alright. Hey. Oh, yeah, I think I got like a little disoriented. License to Kill? Okay. That's your boy, right? That's, what's his fucking name? I know his name. Why am I drawing a blank? The one literally right before Brosnan. Your favorite, right? He's your favorite? What's his fucking name? It's gonna drive me crazy. I'm gonna look it up. I know it. Dalton! God damn it. I think Dalton. I knew that. Fake fan! Be right back. Sorry, one more time. But I wanna watch something. It's kinda nice. Atmosphere.
Shadow gasped and moaned as he was filled to the brim with cum, some oozing out of his ass due to it not being able to fit anymore. Shadow came shortly after, his essence shooting straight into the air, only to come back down. Once Sonic was done, he lowered himself slightly and looked at Shadow, only to see he had been covered in his own cum, most of it on his face and the rest trailing down to his navel. He chuckled and began licking him clean.
Fuck, I was muted this whole time. Are you muted? Yeah, I'm muted. Can you hear me now? How'd that happen? No, actually, I think one of my Elgato transitions, it keeps doing that, but I commented on the Shadow the Hedgehog fan fiction. I greeted Chaos Gremlin. Welcome back. Hello, how you doing? You hear me now, right? Yeah. How far did you get on hardcore mode? Every time I get back, I should do like a system check, like a, you know, mic check. Right scene check. I don't remember the intro for License to Kill. Yeah, I was geeking out about fucking 007. You missed all that. I just checked the castle, reached the castle, got strung up, and got out of the room. Oh, the game just started. Basically. That's like right when you walk into that fucking bitch. Listen, this is the white sulfur weed. We can only use the red type. Yell at me. This is my second playthrough. Like, ever? Yeah, I was saying I never actually played hardcore mode because I'm not really good at the default mode. And I did almost finish Madhouse difficulty for 7. Playing it on PC. Wait, it's not the... Oh! Shit. I get it. Okay, I think I do gotta go this way. Fuck you! This whole game is literally a maze. When I'm just fighting stuff and reading the dialogue, I'm like, aw. When I'm navigating, I'm like, ah! These Lycans are taking headshots with a hand cannon like it's nothing. And those fuckers are fast. The little head dodgies, you know? But every good enemy in Resident Evil does that. Zombies do it. The little ghouls at the bottom of the castle do it. Oh, what? Where did my monitor go? There it is. I gotta tighten my HDMI cable or like adjust it or something. Just cutting out for a sec, which is concerning. Oh, I forgot she was in this movie. Talisa Soto. Is that her name? Some shit like that. She was Katana. Yep, that's the name. The real question is, how are the Lycans taking your back shots?
All right, we won.
I do need this, and please connect. I think it will over here. Yeah. Honestly, License to Kill is kind of mid, but it's a good background movie because everything's exploding. I like how he was like Crash Out Bond before Daniel Craig. His angry Bond. No. Yes. Yeah, I guess he's kind of started that. Like, yeah. Yeah, this one definitely feels like an 80s extreme movie, you know? I don't remember the plot, but I do remember liking the next one more. Because, yeah, Living Daylights is after License to Kill, right? Or is it the other way around? I think Living Daylights is first. Yeah. Yeah, License to Kill is this one. It's the second one. Yeah, in this movie, he's normal Bond, Living Daylights. Living Daylights is first. Yeah. Yeah, he's pissed in this one, right? I forget. I just remember, like I said, a lot of explosions and screaming. I need to watch more Bond. Hey, what up, Bryn? Yeah, I need to rewatch some of these. These are good. Well, most of them are good. Oh, there are a lot of mid Bond movies. They killed his friend. This is basically a revenge movie. Yeah, because he dies in the last one, right? Living Daylights. Got with a few friends. We decided to watch them all in order, but I've heard later ones are mostly really good. I really like half of the Pierce Brosnan ones, and I like the Daniel Craig movies. I haven't finished that last one, but I know Jay hates that one. I need to finish No Time to Die. But dude, Casino Royale might be my favorite one. Casino Royale's yeah, that's the one. Casino Royale is goated. That might be my favorite one. Craig last film dropped halfway through. My problem is, I didn't mean to fall. Fuck. I know a lot of people dunk on it hard. Yeah, that's what I heard. But at least they start strong. I mean, I would argue like 2 of Bond's best movies are in that series. Maybe not the 2 best ones, but Casino Royale is fantastic, and Skyfall is fucking awesome. And I like Spectre. Spectre was kind of cute. Spectre was just like a nice, like, homage to like the classic bullshit. Greg is like 50-50. I give him like a 65, 35, but I hear you. I feel you. Are you not as hot on Spectre? Because I like Spectre. I don't love it, but I like it. Yeah, one of my good friends says his favorite is Skyfall, and the other Casino Royale. Nice, yeah. All of the Craig movies, those are the best. I think really the only discussion is which one is better, Skyfall or Casino Royale. That is tough. It's tough. It's Sophie's choice here. I can't do it. Red Sulfur Weed found that bitch. But outside of that, dude, I'm actually a big Dr. No fan. Connery was so fucking cool in that movie. He's a little badass. Am I going back? He's always a badass. Spectre is made, but I think the story implications are stupid. The whole... It was all his secret brother behind. Oh, yeah, because they were like, hey, we can use Spectre now! So they had to kind of retcon it in a way. I think it works ultimately, but I get it, you know? Because Quantum was like, oh shit, we don't have the rights to Spectre. So, okay, whatever, it's Quantum. And then I guess later on they resolved that shit and they're like, it's Spectre. Quantum sucked the shit. I actually like the intro. But yeah, it's not good. Oh, dude. And you know my biggest problem with Quantum Solace? They killed my girl. Casino Royale and Skyfall are great. Yeah, they are. Dr. No is funny to me. Dr. No is funny, but I think it's hilarious. Dude, there's that... Dude, I keep quoting it. This is like probably the 8th stream where I've quoted it, but it's in Dr. No when Homeboy sneaks into his room to shoot him, but he's like behind the door, you know? And then like I guess he like blap, blap, blap the bed. And then he turns around to try and shoot Connery. And he's like, Dr. Smith and Wesson. And you've had your six. And he just fucking shoots him in the back twice. I was like, yeah, yeah. The 3 blind mice motif is stupid. Wait, what? 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 Hold on. You just like the goofy black assassins. No, I'm saying they're the ones I don't like. Hold on, I'm so confused. Oh, okay, all right. I misunderstood this text. I forgot the context because it's been so long. No, but the plot itself is cool. Honestly, the tone. It just felt like a nice little... I mean, it gets into sci-fi bullshit at the end, but there's something about when you started getting like the super duper crazy gadgets where Bond started becoming like a cartoon a bit. And I feel like Dr. No at least takes itself seriously enough. I play Dr. No, but I don't really like it. That's fair. That's fair. Of the Connery films, here's the thing. It's one of those cases where I acknowledge, fuck. Dude, honestly, those first three, because From Russia with Love is amazing, and Goldfinger, which kind of started a bit of the goof. There's a little goof in there. But that wasn't really crazy until like Thunderball and then more.
Pretty easy.
Last three Connery movies are really bad. Yeah, dude, I hate Thunderball, and I hate Never Say Never. Goldfinger is Pete Connery for me. That's fair. That's a solid choice. I think any of the first three, I think, are fine choices. I think I'm in the minority for preferring Dr. No. I think it usually boils down to From Russia with Love and Goldfinger. But I'm a Dr. No guy. And From Russia with Love is funny because they have like a sex tape they're blackmailed with. Wait, so I got the fucking weed. Do I leave and go back to that kid? That's your ass. I'm looking at that guy again. Yeah, I do. I didn't know if it wanted me to keep going forward because this map doesn't update. Stupid fucking compass doesn't update. Oh, we're fine. It's like the first time taking damage in forever. Yeah, so after him was fucking was George Lazenby? Is he the one that kind of interrupted Connery for a movie? Yeah, because he wasn't sure if he was coming back for Thunderball or some shit. Gross. Wait, what's gross? Lazenby is such... Oh, yeah, you didn't like him. I think the movie's fine. You hate it, which is fair. I don't like most of Roger Moore's. Except the intro for Live and Let Die. It's a banger fucking song, dude. It's not. It's a terrible movie. I can see we don't like it, yeah. I mean, it's fair. It deserves its criticism. I like the tone of it. And from what I've heard, it's basically like an actual like straight adaptation of the book. Except for the fourth wall breaky scene. Even Lazenby aside, I think Her Majesty's Secret Service is way too silly and dumb. What's your take on the Roger Moore movies? That's my criticism for those. I think they're silly and dumb. And I know it's hypocritical, but I do kind of have a soft spot for Moonraker just because of how stupid it is. Like, I kind of respect that they were just like, let's just go for it. It's basically Austin Powers. Or mostly solid, but he stuck around too long. He was there for like 4 or 5 movies. I became a fan as a kid with Brosnan. So in a way, I think he's always gonna be like my guy. But I love Daniel Craig. Dude, he did like 9. Did he really? He did 9? He would have done Live and Let Die, Moonraker. I'm estimating. I'm gonna give you 7. Let me see. I'm gonna guess 7. How many Roger Moore Bond movies are there? 7. It's Live and Let Die. Man with the Golden Gun. Oh, that movie sucks. Spy Who Loved Me's good. That's actually not bad. Moonraker's is goofy as fuck, and then I kind of checked out at that point. For Your Eyes Only, Octopussy, and A View to Kill. I remember, I think I liked A View to Kill, but he was just like kind of like hella old by that point. You know, it was a sad. Look at handsome ass Timothy Dalton. Forgot he had that little chin. I'm looking at them all lined up right now. A View to Kill, maybe the worst Bond film. Is that the one with the black chick? Let me see. No. Which one is fucking A View to Kill? Yeah, I gotta rewatch these. I don't really remember them. I hate it. Yeah, that's the Christopher Walken one, right? Yeah, that one does suck. It's not good. It's so boring, and Moore is like 200 years old. Yeah. I remember he was like depressingly old. He's like the old Snake of Bonds. What else we got? I'm just enjoying the conversation. I should be playing some more. We got back on track with Living Daylights and License to Kill. Oh, same director. Oh, damn, dude. John Glenn directed a lot of these fuck. I got patrol anyway. Oh, okay. Well, I'll be here. Damn it, I was enjoying this. Get back here, talk to me about Bond, you son of a bitch. Put more, fucking, Shadow the Hedgehog fanfic. You gross motherfucker. Alright, hold on, how the fuck do I get out of here? I think it was all the way this way. North relative to that actual. Yeah, actually, yeah, I think I'm going the right way. To the left. Wait, I don't think this is right. Is it? Yeah, this feels right. And then it's down here. Yeah. Right? Okay. Shui. This motherfucker, the red weed, the red herb. Dude, look at this. This is why this game's so fucking confusing. I already got the objective, dude. And it's telling me... Oh, I thought it was still telling me to go back that way. It looked like it. It looked like that. Into the house. Shut up! Saw nothing. But there are times where... Okay.
I don't know about this, Felix, Ralph started to say. I'm not sure, SSSH. Felix interrupted him, climbing up on the bed. Standing on the bed, he reached up and touched Ralph's face. It's okay. He leaned in and kissed him. Ralph had never kissed another man before. It didn't take more than a few seconds before he got past the newness of the sensation and started to kiss back. As they made out, he could feel himself getting hard, very hard. His cock rubbed uncomfortably.
Jesus Christ. That went on way longer than I thought. What's the character limit for this fucking thing? Well, the fever's down. That's a relief for now. Anyway, I'm glad. Phew, I wonder what would happen. Relief for me too. Still, I'd like to know what kind of creature this is. It's got a tail and everything. Oh, it? He's a humanoid, dude. He's a little bruh. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm adjusting my window size a little bit. Considering where he's collapsed, maybe he's from the Misty Forest. In that case, maybe he's got something to do with Angelo. What do you think? I bet that's it. Maybe that's why he's got a tail on those horns. Hey, Fina, what if this kid is really an Ikarian? Shh. Don't talk so loud, Justin. You'll wake him. Shut the fuck up! Sorry, Fina. Guess we got a little worked up. Haha. Really now, Justin. We got no idea whether he has anything to do with the Angelo. I've got a lot to ask when he wakes up. Since he's injured, I think it's only right that we should take him back to... I agree. I hope we find out more.
Let me, he said, reaching over and unsnapping Ralph's overalls. Hopping nimbly down off the bed, he pulled the front of the overalls down with him, tugging them further and further askew until Ralph's massive cock sprang free. Felix's eyes widened, and Ralph saw him lick his lips. Dropping the overalls, Felix wrapped both hands around his prick. Standing, Felix was barely taller than the head, but he proved more than capable of handling the enormous tool as he worked his hands down Ralph.
Nice. Like, did you guys talk about this IRL before? Well, you better get to sleep, Justin. I'll watch over him tonight. Rosalina. That's all I talk about. IRL! What are you up to? You guys playing Outlast? You should sleep soon too. I mean, you had quite a big day after all. Yeah, I know. Well, good night, Justin. Yeah, I know. Sue's already passed the fuck out. What's that? What's that strange music? Hey, Justin, wake up. Mina, I must have dozed off. Huh? Jay's working. I'm reading Wreck-It Ralph smut with Feels Dry. Oh, that was Wreck-It Ralph. Oh my god. Tool, Felix, Ralph. Oh, I didn't make that connection. I thought I wasn't even thinking that. I thought you were just doing dude names. That makes it even funnier, dude. That's the stuff. Very nice, very nice. Huh? Wonder where he went. That wound isn't healed yet. Get the fuck back here! I hear a flute. Where's that sound coming from? Where'd he go? Hey, I hear music. Someone's playing an instrument. I wonder if it's that guy. Recover. At least I'm making progress. Not stuck. There he is. You can't just do it for me, game. What's up, dude? Saw it, dude. Oh. I talked to him. Behind him? Oh. Oh my god, he's hideous! Sir, I don't know where you come from, but here we speak Grandia. Hey, what's your name? I'm Sue. I just imagine like clicking like Starvin' Marvin. You know, I don't think it's human, is it? It's got such a strange voice, but it seems to be saying something. Maybe it's just speaking in a different language. No shit. Who localized this? Another language? You mean there are other languages besides ours? Hey, little guy, what's your name? Where are you from? Or he's like Gleep or Glep from Smiling Friends. He just we're not getting anywhere. I don't think I can understand it. What's going on? He suddenly reached for that nut. Oh jeez, get the fuck off my nut. What will he do with it? Maybe it's a thank you gift. I think he wants you to eat it. I've never seen a nut like that before. I don't know. Here, Justin, try a bite. And Justin, eat the nut. Oh, jeez. Finally found you, you little bitch. Try giving us a hard time. What? Who are you? Take a good look and you'll see we're soldiers from the Garlow forces. Now hand over that humanoid. Humanoid? Then you mean this thing's really human? He's 14. He's 14. He's 14. He's 14 and stupid. Okay. Say, Didn't I meet you and that little girl once in the salt ruins? What an odd place to meet again. He doesn't have a choice here, and I hand over that humanoid or accept the consequences. Boy, you sure are bossy. So why are you so interested in this little humanoid like this? We rescued this kid. Why should we hand him to you without even knowing why? Yeah, that's right. Don't be so tyrannical. What? I've had enough of this idle chatter. You don't know what tyrannical means. I was hoping Justin would say something about that. These humanoids are classified as top secret under the Garlow Force's plan. Hand them over or we'll kill you all. Top secret? Garlow Force? Oh shit. Hey, Saki, you just blabbed about a top secret matter. Try thinking before you talk. Well, I had no choice. Either way, we have to take these guys back to the base. Yeah, now that they know too much, of course, we have to kill them. We have to kill these children. Enough of this nonsense. We're thinking we're just going to give up quietly? No, you three have no right to disobey us. You want hard labor and starvation? The heart? Nice. Alright, soldiers. Take him to our frontline base. Being taken. Just got done token. Got tooked. Oof, that felt good. Hey, 3D! Excuse me, sorry. I vaguely remember all this. Those cute little, like little Toriyama tanks. And he just killed him in a firing squad. Rin's life. Nice. Good man, Rin. Actually, I should do some shout outs real quick. Who's here? Who's been here? Who we got? Okay. So, first was B90. B90's a little sweetheart. He was last seen playing, oh, the Aiden Chronicle. Aiden Chronicle. Yeah, what game is this?
Look. What the fuck? You know, I almost kind of just want to dip.
He's a great dude. He'll be doing yourself a disservice by not checking out his streams. I've had the pleasure of catching a few. It was a fun time. I wish I knew what game this is. Is that the Hunt Showdown or what? Yeah. I just lost a viewer. That's fine. Next up, Feels Dry. Oh, I miss Feels Dry stream. Feels Dry. He's got like a ton of potential. Because the shit he says is amazing. But yeah, he just doesn't like streaming. I believe.
And third funny.
What? Nah. I think you do, dude. You have the personality for it. I think you said you kind of need something to bounce off of.
Oh,
I feel
no,
that.
not more of these electric
But
things.
I love the streams that you've done that I've had the pleasure of catching. Feels Dry is almost due for a stream, right? Wait, what number do you need to hit, and what number are you? Is anybody here? If you give Feels Dry a follow and he hits a certain number, he streams. It's like summoning Shenron, dude. Oh yeah, thanks for the shout out. Oh, no problem, B90. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being so cool. Oh shit, you are close. Everybody, follow Feels Dry Soul stream. He needs 3 more followers, and then we all get blessed. No fake accounts. Yeah, no fake accounts. I'm just kidding. No fake accounts. That's not part of a deal. That's fair. But give him a follow. To all the real accounts here that don't follow him. I'm fake and I followed. Who else we got? We got the Bloody Kotex. Legit, one of my best friends. Talented artist, editor, and gamer. Look at him focus in these war games. You're a real one, B90. Shut your whore mouth. He is a real one.
This doesn't look good. Hostile located about 50 meters from your position. Hostile infantry. Charges set. Guard until they blow. Hostile troop movement.
Nice. What game is this? Battlefield? It's Battlefield.
50 meters away from your position.
This looks intense. There's actual players? He's online doing this. Battlefield 2042. Oh, nice. Oh!
Oh, man.
Yeah, that upset me. That guy's wearing a green shirt. Wait, is he? Is he being masked out? Is he like semi-transparent?
Got it, maybe.
What it looks like. Next up is my actual best friend, my ride or die. He white, but he's still my nigga. The Dead Wolf. Get this. Game designer, artist, fucking cosplayer, streamer. He just won't quit.
Nice.
Hell yeah, brother.
Oh, that's such a...
It's got DJ up in this motherfucker. My favorite customer. Wait, did I do it right? Oh. I put like I, capital I. I think I missed there.
Talk to
I can't because you're in.
Yeah, this dude's a trip. Plays a lot of games. Big Sonic fan. Lots of RPGs. He likes Animu and Persona. Good guy. Give DJ a follow. You want to talk about potential? Another mofo who don't stream enough. Jay's a big Sonic fan too. No, he is a big.
You know that. Wait, I mean anonymous. Nice try. That one.
Sorry, I cracked myself up. Sonic 06, I hear that's the best. I hear that's the worst. He's a big fan of the big character from Sonic the Hedgehog. And I forgot about Joey being the baby shark bandit. Oh, fuck you. I hate that song so much. I got like, it was like the Mark help before that was a thing. I hated that. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad. I wonder how much money Jay made off of that fucking. Look at that. I got triggered. I can't even speak right now. Whoever I'm not giving a shout out to, still here. Oh, I am giving Jay a shout out. Follow this mofo. Give him a watch. He plays tons of games. He's really dedicated. He's just finished Shin Megami Tensei 4, and he's gonna play Assassin's Creed next.
Wait, I'm coming.
It's like a top 5 video game franchise for me. Someone did it when you joined Jay's stream every day. Wait. Someone did it when you joined Jay's stream every day for like 6 months. But yeah, wonder who that somebody was. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, me. Get your ass up here. Oh nice. Get your ass up there, boy. Oh, it's me and Lemon.
What you see, boy?
Me being racist.
What's up there, boy?
Fastest cultural artifact, master.
There's some big words for you, boy.
Stupid. RE5 is so good. Hey, is this the whole clip? I need to trim
What
this
you
shit.
see up there?
Oh ho, prepare to die because you won't get out alive. Get alive. Isn't this lovely? Now we can have a real execution. What would be the best method? Oh man, they do intend to kill these kids. Nice. Well, let's go, Nana. Bo. Listen, be relentless. Put your hearts into it. Be on the lookout. They're gone. What do we do now? Justin? Can't use our weapons either. Anyway, I have to escape from here somehow. Right? What's this? FT pipe acquired. Beat the fuck out of somebody. Just walk right in the head. Great. This is really hefty. This will do the trick. Wow, a blow with that would really hurt. Yeah, it would. Great. Now we got a hold of a weapon. Now, how do we escape from here? Oh, yeah, that fuck. Light bulb. I know. Let's do it that way, Sue. Yeah. Yes, I understand, Justin. Ow, my stomach. Ow, ouch, my tummy hurts. Listen up. Sue's in bad shape. What are you gonna do? Shut up. What is it? Sue's in bad shape. Yow, my stomach hurts. Hey, hurry, take her to the doctors. Oh, you little brat. Wait a second, I'm opening it now. Wait, he really fell for that? Damn, dude, you deserve to get hit in the head with a hefty pipe. Yeah, Darwin Awards go to that idiot. Hey, it worked. Ah! Strategy never fails. Come now, Sue. Wait, come. Now we rescue Fiona and stop the boy. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, now we rescue Fiona and the boy and escape. The way the music changed, I thought something was gonna happen. Both these doors open? One open. Maybe it's impossible to get out from here. Okay, cool. Tina! Justin, you came for me. Tina, wait, I'm opening it right now. No good, it won't open. Stop that, Justin. You can't bust it open. You have to use a key. That's right, Justin. There's a room in back. There might be a key there. You're right. All right, let's take a look. Let's go. Here we go. How about you? I see humanoids in another room. Must be looking right now. There are only 2 children. Our lookout will be just fine. Don't worry. Oh, what? Who are you? Get that key. You killed him, Justin. Oh fuck! Oh fuck! He's dead. The humanoid must be that boy. All right, I'll rescue him. All right, here's the jail key. Jail key acquired. Any of these open? It's not. All right, that's fine. Who's escaped? Oh shit, they're onto us. The fuzz! Okay, just checking. Uh-oh. Oh. Oh shit. Hey, yeah! You guys are fucked. Twit. Don't hit me, I'm a child. Rat. Only one more step away. Rats, let me out of here. What are you gonna do with us? Say something. Shut up, quiet in there. Fuck you! I was the middle prisoner. They kept shouting ever since. They don't quiet down at all. Is that so? I will talk with the prisoners. Let me pass. Did your name is Justin? You really made fools of us. What are you saying? How bad you treat us at Salt. Now untie this rope right away. Let me see Fina. Bitch! Shut up! I will not allow you to mouth off like that. Hit him! You know too much about military secrets, ancient culture, and humanoids. Punishment for you three will be decided within a week. Should be a sentence. Death sentence. You think we'll go quietly to a death sentence? I'll break out. I'll show you. I said, don't mouth off! Oh, nice. It'd be cool if you rotated the other way. Oh, yeah, okay, cool. He's doing it. Nice. Again, I'll remember this. You seriously think that you can escape from here? Perhaps if you were alone, but you can't all escape unless you stole a military train. It's like Solid Snake dialogue. A military train? All you can do right now is wait until we carry out your sentence. Be quiet until then. We'll get out. Wait. We will soon get our next orders from Colonel Mullen. You men stand by in the other room. But Lieutenant Lean, you don't have to watch this punk. Don't we have to watch this punk? Leave him alone. If he makes any more ruckus, I won't mind if you kill him. Kill him? Yes, ma'am. Excuse us. Excuse. Hindy. Okay. Like, take out or something? I've been thinking this over, and there's still plenty of time until they carry out your sentence. Thanks! I mean, it's on the floor and I'm literally tied up. Pah! I'll remember that woman giving me a slap like that. Right? It awoken something in little Justin just now. Well, what do I do now? First, I have something with this rope. Hey, I think I can wriggle out. Somehow. A little more. I did it. I did it. Great. This time I'll get away. What could this be? Great. It's a jail key. Dude, I don't play Metal Gear now. A woman called Lean dropped it. She's really a dunce. Justin, you are mentally challenged. Justin, you're all right. Wait, Fina? I'll open it for you now. Great, it opened. Thank you, Justin. I don't know why I imagine like the George W. Bush. That was an easy one. I'm amazed you got out of your cell. Me too. What kind of magic did you use? The truth is, a soldier came around a little while ago and I heard a few things. Then she dropped the jail key. She was so fucking stupid. That's how I escaped. Wow, that's a little hard to believe. So you were saved. So you were saved thanks to her. Hey Justin, before we escape, let's go rescue the humanoid boy. Of course we will. Well then, hurry! Let's go look for that child before they come after us. Let's do it. Let's go! Ultimate drink. Holy shit. Wait, hint. I actually never used the hint system. They're gonna like... I've never selected hint before. Low skill levels. Using weapons and spells. Oh, it's just random fucking tips. Using weapons and spells when their skill levels are low gives additional experience points. This way you can easily increase lagging skills. Oh, it's one of those games. Just use it. Use it or lose it. Oh wait, no. Sorry, I went the wrong way. Going up this way. Stupid ass. Aw, it's adorable. I'm still mad at this game for being a maze, but this is cute. Can I just peek? I did it. I finally made Kite Pilot. My dream came true. Dude, that's like me. I got robbed. I got robbed of my drone exam. I'm not a drone pilot. I want to be pilot. I want to be a pilot of the drone. I'm glad I believed him when Colonel Mullen said I had that ability. And I had ability. What are these motherfuckers saying? I want to be pilot. I hear the military train we're stationed on this time has really high horsepower. That makes more work for us. The higher the technology, the more it has to be maintained. Say, do you hear something? How about it, Justin? Must be the military trained. But keep it down, Sue. They'll hear us. Yeah, shut the fuck up. Shh. Shut the fuck up, Sue. Carlisle Base Warehouse. Oh yeah, nice. They're doing the. In my head, it goes between Glep and Starvin Marvin. What that voice? They're both speaking it. Aw, still useless. He's still so frightened. How'd it go, Colonel Mullen? Did you find out the location of the humanoid village? I don't know why I made her voice deeper. No, he's scared out of his... Wait. He's so scared his mind is shut, he wouldn't even say his own name. Much less the location of the village. Dan's group probably went too far. They always do. They're ruthless. I'll have to caution them. Mullen, what do you intend to do about the humanoid child? You can't be thinking of killing it. Well, gentle Lean, is that weighing on your mind? No, not really. Don't worry, we won't rough him up. We have justice on our side. This operation is meaningful. Still, I think we should go... Wait, I imagine him talking like Dio, you know? Still, I think we should go with the plan we discussed earlier. Well then, don't dilly-dally, Lean. Yes, sir, Mullen. How are you, Justin? Did you find that boy? I can't hear his voice anymore. Sure, I found him. And that guy was there too, the one that we met at the Salt Ruins, called Molly or something. What? The blonde guy? He's the one. He said he would flatten Justin. Well, was I flattened? It was just a rough fight. But that guy, how can he talk to that boy? Who in the world is he? Who are you? First, we have to save that boy. Let's go. Let's hop down. Boy. Read it. Wee. Oh. No? What? The fuck out. Okay. Does this really loop back around, or did I just go backwards? I think it's no, because I came out on like a... Yeah, this is not where I came from. This is somewhere else. This is where... Yeah, Justin, look. If you push the right buttons, it might open the door. If you push those buttons... Oh, shit. I don't fucking know. Up. And then up. And then left. And then right. And down. And then up. Relax, just relax. Justin, the 7th one is gonna be right. Last one is gonna be down. Rat still doesn't work. Don't do anything foolish. Look for the way to open the door, Justin. Oh. Guess I gotta go this way. Okay. Not that way. This way. Oh, the results of the... Hey! The results of the female officer beauty contest have come out. Here they are. Anne is Lieutenant Need number 1 again. Should have known it. She's far and away the best. Next is Sergeant Mio. Once again, Lieutenant Lean is nice to her subordinates. Okay, this way. And... Let's see, because it looks like In the orders, Sergeant Saki willfully then on the Grandia. Hey, who's there? Whoa, they found us. Now that you know military secrets, I can't let you live. You will die! I caught you gooning, you motherfucker. That's what it is. You're just embarrassed. Is this guy doing heavy blow? I got over there, he's doing heavy blow, dude. He's on the blow? He seems so nice. Oh, oh, oh! I got heavy blown. That's not so bad, actually. And what about none? And what about none? Oof. Does it want me to? Okay, I can leave. Okay, cool. What do we got? What do we got? Uniform? Oh shit! Look at that. We got like Mai or something right here. Wrong button. This one. You. What did? Wait. Oh, S uniform. Surprisingly strong. Does anybody actually benefit from this? Oh, everybody does. Barely. I guess I'll give it to you. You kind of the weakest defense. You're just a little baby. And then nobody else gets that. In here, okay. Fine. Driftloon. What do you think of the new world duty? Isn't it hard compared to Parm? Ha! Not hardly at all. I'm happy being able to work with superior persons like you, sir. It's a brown on your nose. Walk back up here too? I can. I'm the tidiest in the squad. I'm so clean. There's a nary speck left. He's just listening to anti-aliens right now, just in his element. Well, I finished cleaning the room, so now I'll just clean out the duct. Yikes! Who goes there? What was that noise? I want to play more Metal Gear. You know what I'm gonna do? Like, Jay did put it out that I should. He suggested it. I'm kind of down that my next marathon be Onimusha. But I might do a poll too, because I kind of want to play Metal Gear. Honestly, if he was gonna play Assassin's Creed, I was gonna fucking do it. Maybe some classic games. I'll put a poll out, but I'm thinking, yeah, Metal Gear. Probably gonna be one. Like I'm playing Grandia 1 and 2. That's a done deal. But yeah, Onimusha. I can always finish Sly Cooper. I would be on 2 now. Sly 2. I feel like that's like the Silent Hill 2 of fucking Sly games. Where it's like, it's the best one, but my favorite's 1, you know? For Sly goes. My favorite Silent Hill is... Fuck. Probably 3, still. What we got in here? Ooh, big chest. Big chest! An O uniform. Oh, shit. Nicer than the soldiers. Nicer than the soldiers what? Stupid. Honestly, yeah, you're just a little BB. Yeah, if I can get your shit off you. Then you wear that one. Tight. Locked? Yeah, you're locked. Then, I think I'm going this way. They say this room is haunted. Even one night is too many to spend in this room. Just cut that out. Who was the one who thought of testing our courage here? Pussy. Ghosts aren't real. Am I going the right way? I think so. First-rate soldier never neglects eating. You never know when a battle will be drawn out and you can't have a satisfying meal. You got you there, dude. Wait, what's over here first? Can I walk up and down? What? Who could you be? You invaders? Yeah. I need like a long stream of a game like this, you know, like on a Saturday or on a Sunday or something. Put like 7 hours into this motherfucker. I gotta. Cause my sleep schedule, at least on my days off, is worse than ever. I've been waking up at like 3, 4 p.m. Yeah. That's not good. If I can manage to wake up before noon, I should do like a nice, like a long stream on a weekend. Saturday or a Sunday. Yeah, leveled up. It's gotta be like a treasure chest near somewhere, right? Oh, this door actually opened. Oh, wait. Is this like a closet or is this where I gotta go? This is where I gotta go. Hold on. Let me get back up there because that means that I'm missing something. Because it was the other direction. Oh, don't do this. Alright, cool. Get the fuck in there. And we're gonna go check out over here. Well, this is locked. It's just like another screen. Wait, locker room. Oh! Wait, I just go backwards? God damn it, game. Oh, shit. Hey, what is this? Oh, shit. My God, they're naked! This new world is so hot. And I got heat rash in my bra. And look, my underwear too. Oh shit. That's very strange. According to my calculations, you don't need a bra. Oh! Burn! Hey, stop talking about the heat. You're making me feel hotter. But anyway, why did Hermolin pick Saki? I wanted to give him me orders. See, you understand now. Hermolin holds me in high esteem, definitely. You whores. By the way, was the beast's door combination? Oh shit, wait. Up, down, left, right. Oh, that's a Konami code, isn't it? Up, down, left, right. Oh, up, down, left, right. BA start, select, maybe. I can remember that. Up, down, left, right. You have heat rash on the brain now? You dumb. It's right, left, right. Oh shit, it's right, left, right. Left, down, up. Saki, you are hopeless. You are totally wrong. It's right, left, down, up. That's so. It's right. Oh my god, you guys, I gotta memorize. In front of the beast, you can just ham it up saying rats. I forgot. Don't fail, okay? I won't fail at such a simple job. I'll just pop over and do it. Let's see. Right, left, down, up. Is that right? Hey, you dum-dums, what's the code? It's okay, I'll just look it up. Wait, do I have to listen to that again? Oh, right, left. Okay, wait. Right, left, down, up. Good, perfect. Take a picture of that. Yeah, it's funny. It looks like they have the Confederate flag in there a little bit on the bottom left. I mean, bottom right. Right, what did we say? Hermon trusts me the most, and SP love? No, that can't be. All right, bye, naked girls. Have fun being naked. That was this way. got that fucking code now, which is here. And we got. God damn it. Okay. Right. Right. Left. Left. Down, up, down, up. Okay. Oh yeah! You gotta see him change too. That's right. Huh? Wait a minute, Fina. Oh, Justin, you're the worst. Sue, not you too. Hurry, quick, let's go save that child. Right? Justin's like, you guys go ahead. I'm gonna double check this code, but make sure the coast is clear. Good subject, huh? There's no fucking way I'm 13 hours in. I fucked up. I think I should be at like 7 tops. It's okay, it's okay. We're gonna help you now. Let me see. How do we open cages? There must be a switch. Oh, they got a little plate. Got some big ass bullets. Drills. The fuck is a button? Are you a button? That's a little crank. Hey, will this open the cage? Yeah, boy. Yeah! 3 nuts? Dang, dude, I only got 2. He tried to get them to us before. Is he telling us to eat them? Eat my nuts? Well, maybe. They don't look poisoned. Here, Justin, you eat it. Oh, you eat the nuts and you understand them. I remember. You gotta eat his nut, then you understand. Fool, what do you say? Aren't we in this together? If we are to die, let's die together. Ha 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 ha, Justin, you sound melodramatic. But as you said, Justin, everyone eat it together. It is. Okay, let's eat on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Ooh. Oh, Jesus. Oh my god, he's like that kid. You guys ever see that video of that kid who's like, it's like his birthday or whatever? He's like fucking like 6, 7. 6, 7, sorry. And he has like a Mario themed party, and he's like in his like kitchen or whatever, and he's like, yeah, he's just like running around, and then boom, he just like slams into the fucking door frame like face full force. That's what Justin just did. You all right? I'm sorry, guys. Did it taste that bad? Did it taste that bad? Of course. What are you trying to feed us, you nincompoop? Whoa. Take it easy, man. I'm no nincompoop. My name is Rem. Justin? I can understand him now. What? Now that you mention it, it's true. I can understand him too. That note was the communic nut is part of the wisdom of the lost culture in my village. Amazing. Well, we have a lot to talk about. Now we have to escape. Let's look for a way out. Let's get the fuck out of here. I can just backtrack. It's pointing here again. Let me get back in here like a trap. What's wrong, Justin? Are you trying to close the cage back up? No, I'm just making sure I'm not missing nothing, Sue. Oh, nice. I can. That's like 13 hours exactly. I looked it up. This game is like 40 to 50. With the way I play, and oh shit, you're off my stream. I'll be playing this for the next few months. Huh? You? How in the fuck did you get out of jail? You even brought the humanoid child along. My, you saved me the trouble of finding you. Not. You'll never get away alive. Okay.
Come on.
Fuck you! Oh, she's doing magic already? God damn, bro. At all enemies. Let's do that one. Just fuck you. Then these guys sound kind of like Johnny Bravo when he's doing his stuff. Oh shit! Somebody else was doing it. Hopefully that still cancels. Please. Please. Oh damn, girl. Oh shit. 28. Oh man, that was a lot. Ah! It doesn't fucking matter right now. Uh-oh. 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 Oh, mama. Let's see, what we are gonna do is an item. Friends. What was it? Chola do? No. One friend. Get him! Or her. Don't! Okay, I canceled. Oh wait, that should have canceled. What the fuck? That should have canceled. Did I not pick critical? Did I fuck up? I thought I picked critical. Motherfucker. Alright. Justin needs it this time. Oh damn, that goes fast too. Yeah, I probably didn't have to. I just can actually use some shit. Yeah. Oh fuck. Got her. Oh shit. They're both actually kind of low. Let's do Fina. Snover? Snover, no! What the fuck? Justin, don't you die on me. Don't you die on me! I gotta heal everybody. I gotta heal the world. Actually, I'm gonna do Burn Flame. Fuck you, bitch.
Oh, flame burn him!
Now I heal. Damn, bruh. Oh shit. Dude, you're fast. That's like unfair fast. Can I heal more than one yet? No. Ugh. Okay, range attack with shockwaves. I'll do this one. B-slash!
B-slash!
Oh shit, that was actually quite a bit. Yeah, so you're about to be our dedicated fucking healer, dude. Why you always dying?
Come on.
Oh my god, stop fucking dying. This bitch. Alright, let's just use all our special bullshit. Ah! Ah! Fuck!
Watch this.
Okay, it didn't cancel, that's good. You whore! They just fuck her up. We can do this. Focus fire! Shit. Fire everything!
Now I'm really angry.
Yeah! Hurry up and die. Any more? It didn't do that much. What is your... Oh, wait. Fuck her up with magic. That's right. Oh, shit. I can't do Burn Flame? Hey, Burn... Oh, fuck. Burn might be good. And pursue... What do you got? You got just water and shit, right? Digging. Yeah, you got nothing. Oh, Snover escaped. Snover, no.
Oh, flame burn him!
Yeah, I think I got this. Die! die! Oh shit. Oh cool, yeah, we got her.
Man. Big win, puppy.
Oh shit. I think Phoenix about to level up. Yeah! Master key acquired. Hey, I found something here. We can open a lot of doors with this. Is that the door? Yeah, that's the door she was blocking. I can go to the actual locker room this way. I can just go through their shit, but I can't rotate the camera. I see underwear, a dress, and all the posters of that guy. Or, oh, she does. Mullen. That guy. Wait, is that an item on the couch? I saw something like a sprite moving on it. Pick that up? What is that? Oh, just like chick armor. Panties on the floor. God damn, you guys are slobs. Oh wait, can I slide down the doohickey? No. Alright. Fine. Shit. Oh shit, this is a sword. Arm saber? Oh, fucking item. No, why would I do that? I meant to do discard inventory item. God damn, this game needs it. Are you sure? Or to not have that be a feature right there. I picked the wrong one. It's fine. I'll get another sword. Fucking annoying though. It's going the wrong way, I think.
Mario trembled at Peach's touch to his manhood. Take it off. Peach smirked as she did what Mario told. She was astonished when she caught sight of what Mario had beneath his undergarment. "You're so big, Mario," she stated in a very staggered tone. This only made Mario smirk. "Well, what are you waiting for?" he replied with a sly look on his face. Peach mischievously giggled as she licked the edges of Mario's shaft upon hearing him whimper in pleasure.
Thank you. Welcome back. So I see we went from Sonic to Mario. Now you gotta do a Sonic Mario one. Or I'll throw Kirby up in that motherfucker.
Peach blushed, now engulfing his member into her balmy mouth, sucking it vigorously. The moment was strong for Mario as he raised his pelvis and clutched the back of Peach's head while she picks up the pace in her sensual action.
Guys, hold on. There's a fucking chest here. Open it. Is that not a chest here? Am I not standing on a chest? Oh, there's a barrel. What the fuck is happening right here? Nothing? No reason to stand on this? Oh. Annoying. Alright, cool. This door is useless. It's good to know. Yeah, this is where I got that sword. Oh, wait. Let's see what's over here. Oh, shit. Oh, I could have saved right there. Oh, shit. Another boss fight now? Funny moves. Oh, I should be okay. I'll be fine.
Come on.
I'm not worried about nothing. Fuck.
Peach IC can't hold it anymore. Peach's eyes widened, quickly noticing Mario outcome and lets go of his manhood and covered its base. Mario was puzzled, wondering why Peach would attempt such a stunt like that. Peach, why did she gently place a finger to his lips, stopping him from continuing his sentence? No more words tonight. Let our actions do all the talking.
Is this like on a database somewhere? Or is this like ChatGPT just feeding you Sonic and Mario fanfiction? Also, this is quite bad. I didn't see the save until it was too late.
I show no mercy.
Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me.
One. I show no mercy.
You bitch, you just win!
Blushing constantly, she manually undressed her sports shorts and her sexy white panties, dropping them to the floor. Mario was speechless as he noticed how splendid Peach's womanhood looked. A smirk dropped upon her face as she adjusted herself above his hips, her lower lips just mere inches above his shaft. Mario couldn't take any more of her playful schemes. He gripped her waist and dropped her to finally unite his manhood with hers.
I show no mercy.
This is fucked up. I think I got a game over just now. I might. Fuck. Dude, this bitch is way too fast. What the fuck is going on? Defend. I don't know what else to fucking do. Is he united his manhood with hers? Yeah, he did.
Put down anyone with one shot.
Holy shit, and it canceled? Oh my god, what the fuck? She's so fast! I can't keep up with this bullshit. Do I have a resurrection potion?
Peach whimpered a quick gasp as she could feel Mario deep inside her. She physically moved herself in rhythm, driving upwards and downwards on Mario's rigid shaft. Mario could feel Peach's tight flower grasp around his member while he stared at her big breasts, flopping in the same pace she was going. Peach knew that Mario desperately wanted to get a hold of them, so she guided both of his hands at each breast. Peach increased the speed of her pace, both her and Mario sweating from ecstasy.
You guys are insane. Thank you. Fuck. We can make it through this.
This'll put
I
down anyone with
believe.
one shot.
I believe. We can do this. We just need to fucking like hella heal right now, dude.
Now you'll be okay.
I hope so. Ooh. Wait, all allies? All levels. Oh, I see. Honestly, dude, give it to fucking this bitch. I can do this, guys. I just need you to believe. Oh! Okay, fuck. What is she doing? You doing yo-yo? Oh, no! The game doesn't even know what she's doing. They're all gonna die. Sue and Justin are too low.
This'll put down anyone with one
Son
shot.
of a bitch! Well, actually, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be. Alright, might Buffy attack everybody? No. Alright, just because I'm panicking, I gotta get this guy out of the way.
OHH, Peach, I am about to. Yes, Mario, release it inside me. They both finally reached their peak as they climaxed and collapsed onto each other, exhausted and drained. Peach, Mario whispered softly, beaming into her eyes. Yes? She replied, panting faintly. You're good. Mario smirked as he tightly gripped Peach's soft ass.
Good. I have no idea where this is coming from, but it is funny. Wait, herbs? How much do their herbs give me? It's 15? No. V-slash!
V-slash!
That was a good story. Yeah, it was pretty riveting. I'm like invested. man, we're all gonna fucking die is what's gonna happen. Actually, fuck, I don't have a choice. Use the dope magic.
Oh, flame burn 'em!
Shit. Okay, now I can heal. Honestly, Fina. Even though I should attack her so that everyone else can catch up. Yeah. Yeah, that might be the move.
Wearing another man's skin.
I love this show, and this is the best character.
And desires. And being in control of his every single move. That's how you get off. Now, don't you guys want to
Get off with me? It's weird.
I want you to get off with me. Okay. Okay. Just follow my lead, guys. We're gonna get off together.
The entire party? No, I need health to the entire party. I need it! Fuck! Alright, let's try and burn this bitch.
Oh, flame burn 'em!
That might have been a mistake. I should have been healing. Oh, fucking 40? That's it? Ah! You jive, turkey! Alright, let's see. Oh, no, not burn, not burn, not burn, not burn. Let's heal this motherfucker. Oh, we're all doomed!
Now you'll be okay.
This bitch can't be canceled, which is fucking annoying. She's just attacking. Get her, get her, get her, get her, kill her, kill her! Ah! Who's she attacking? Yo, yo. See, and then the other ones let you know who this bitch will be attacking. I have no choice. I gotta try to. Ooh. How much health does she have? I can't guarantee everybody's gonna make it, but I think I can do this. I think I can do this.
Face slash!
Please cancel. No, of course not.
This'll put down anyone with one shot.
Justin? Oh shit, it's Fina. Oh shit, it's both of them! Oh fuck! Oh, the entire party? Oh, I should have been done that. Oh shit.
Okay?
Oh fuck. Her speed is way too high.
Get away with that! I show no mercy.
Fuck, we're dead. You've doomed us all! Oh, that wasn't that bad. I keep thinking we're dead. We're fine. I should heal. But also fuck this bitch! That's way better than the fucking magic I was trying to do. Oh, she's just defending? Oh, dude, fucking unload on her. Giggity. I could do Howl, that might work, but honestly... Oh yeah, we fucked her up. Got her! You bitch!
Hey,
Making me panic for nothing!
All right, big win for us.
Nice. Oh, fuck you. I'm gonna go this way first. Fucking recover from that shit. God damn. Yeah, if I died, I would have lost 20 minutes. Which is not the end of the world, but, you know, with a stream schedule like mine, I would feel. Ugh, if only Saki and Mio were here. Just you wait. We're in trouble. They found us. Justin, what do we do? Anyway, let's look for a way out. Alright. Ouch. Really gotta fix this. Oh, nice. Army dart? Oh, shit. Oh. Oh, there we go, yeah. 69? Duh. Hell yeah. Man, I'm so like, I'm mad I fucking discarded that sword. It's okay. There will be better swords. The end of the world. Can I go back here? Yeah, oh, no. Okay, there's a fence. You're not lean. Which one are you? Mio? You're Mio, right? My. I thought I was noisy and okay. Now we have a problem. According to my plans, you three are scheduled for execution tomorrow. I'll change the plan. I'll carry out the sentence right now. Bitch, I got full energy. You're going down. Well, let me kill your homies first. Stun gun. Oh shit, that's like fuser or something, isn't it? Is she paralyzed now? I think that's what that means. Oh shit, he's heavy blowing over there. Cut it out! Oh shit. Yo! Alright, I think I have a paralyzed heal. I think that's what that is. Parrot white. I think she's paralyzed. That's just a theory. I do it? Yeah. Oh god damn it. Oh god damn it. You bitch. Oh, you bitch! Well, that's not good.
Oh, flame burn 'em!
Well, it does do multiples. Okay, that's helpful. Alright, Justin, I'm depending on you right now. Even though I should focus fire on that. How much else does she have? Oh, she's not that bad. I would like for Sue to be there. Oh, I should. Oh shit, he doesn't have one. Alright, that's fine. Fuck her up anyway. Damn it. Attack. Yeah.
Here goes!
Oh, nice. That was quite nice. You have one? Oh shit. I don't. Sue, no. Just this bitch out of the way and focus fire. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Balloon. What is this? Nerve gas? What are you? We good? Stop. Stop. Stop it. Am I confused? Is that what that means? Am I slow? What is... Shit, stop! You fucking bitch! Like triggered over here. Do I have any grenades or something? That was just a whole... Oh, SP is kind of a good one though. Yeah. If only Sue wasn't dead. Don't kill me, 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 don't kill me. Don't get her! No! Fucking bitch. Good thing I just saved, because I think that did it.
Well now, die from this nerve gas!
Alright, well, I'm gonna open up with that fucking balloon, not the balloon, the shockwave next.
Here goes! Ha!
Damn it. Oh, I actually have a turn? What? I don't even think I can. Smelling salts. It's not confused or poisoned. I hate you. I hate you. Oh, and I'm poisoned. Oh, I am poisoned. Oh, fuck. Damn it, girl. No, not ginseng. Actually, she's gonna kill him. I don't. He's also paralyzed. I don't think I have a para heal. Do I? I don't. No. All right. We can do this. We can do this. Oh shit, he's sweet, he's not poisoned or whatever anymore. We can do this!
Face slash!
Fuck the poison. No! What is it? What are you doing? Balloon? Block! Defend!
Well now, die from this nerve gas!
Stop being an asshole! We canceled. Oh, dude, why do you get to go twice?
Well now, die from this nerve gas!
Yeah, I need to upgrade my speed somehow or something with these bosses right now. Dog. Alright. Get her, get her, get her, get her, get her.
I'm really angry.
Alright, this might do it. I think I'm okay.
Face slash!
Yeah!
I
Asshole.
must have miscalculated.
Too bad Sue couldn't be here to see this.
Alright!
I'm pulling out for Sue. Hey, it's 11:11. Make a wish. I wish a nigga would. Nice.
I wish a nigga would.
That's usually my answer, even though quite often I say I wish I was dead. Let's see. It's funny, I have no idea what's happening in this fucking movie right now. Huh? What's that? Oh, dude, it's the fucking train from Final Fantasy VIII. Hell yeah. That's it, the military train that one was talking about. Great, we'll escape on this. Wonderful, Justin, can you drive it? Sure. Well, actually, I've never done it. We'll figure it out. And then this is how we all die. We derail in like a quarter mile. Are you at the end? No. I'm like maybe a fifth the way in? No. Quickly, quickly, Justin, those guys are coming. Okay, I got it. I got it. This is it. Hey, hey, out of the way. I'll run you over. And then take the defrosting powers, the stop! I see. So the humanoid boy escaped. So far, so good. Yes, Colonel, but nothing! What is it, Lean? Nothing. Nothing at all. Very well, Lieutenant. Have Nana, and the others trail the boy as planned. They'll come with me to the trail from the air. Prepare the Grandia for departure immediately. Yes, Colonel. We'll be ready in 15 minutes. Oh, wow, it's 3D again. Nice. 2 so much better. I can't wait to play 2. Oh, damn. Looks like, what's it called? The Ragnarok? The name of that ship in, was it 10? 10-2? One of those? Dude, with that background, it really does kind of remind me of Final Fantasy VIII right here. Morning, Justin. Oh, Fina, good morning. Oh, Fina. It looks like we got away from the soldiers, okay? You've been driving this train all night, Justin. You must be tired. Do you drive a train? Wouldn't you like operate? Do you drive a train? I don't know, that's weird. I think driving implies you can like steer something. You know. You've been driving, yeah, whatever. I'll take over if you like. Nah, I'm fine. A first class adventurer would never get tired this soon. How are Rem and Sue doing? They're each sound asleep in their own cars. They're so cute when they're asleep. Yes, but I hope they'll be up soon. I've got so many things to ask Rem. I understand your frustration, but let's let him sleep for a while longer. He had a very rough day yesterday. Okay, okay. You think I should add some more coal to the fire? I'll be glad to shovel it for you. No, that's okay. I'll do it. Jesus, Justin. Well, then who's gonna drive the engine? Oh, tell you what, I'll drive while you shovel the coal. Okay, you win. Now, pull on that lever over there. Yeah, what was that? Go with it, Justin. That was the brake. Well, bitch, you said to pull the lever. The big ass lever right there. Boy, Justin. I was just goofing around. Oh yeah. Yeah. Sure. How are you, Rem? Did you sleep last night? Well, last night? Uh-huh. Not really. I couldn't sleep much. But you know, it's my first time to run on one of these things. I like it. It's so fun. This thing is called an engine. We've also got engines like these where I come from. Puff puff. Pass. I wonder why little boys always dream about riding on things like this. Justin climbed into one once without asking. Boy, did you get chewed out. Ha 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 ha. That's just like Justin. Ha 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 ha. But did that really happen to me? Maybe. By the way, Ram, I got a lot of things I want to ask you. What do you want to know? Who hurt you in the Misty Forest? I was walking through the Misty Forest, and these scary soldier ladies started chasing me. It was one of those 3 ugly ones. I was running away as fast as I could, then I stumbled and got hurt. But why would the Garlaw forces do something like that to you? I wonder if my sister was involved. I hope not. What do you want to know? You ever see the end of the world? End of the world? Oh, you mean the big old wall? Of course I've seen it. Long time ago. People used to live on the other side. My mother told me about that. Really? People on the other side? What do you want to know? What was your home village like? My home village is called Luke Village. Luck? I'm saying Luke. It's hidden in some very thick mist, so thick that outsiders can't find us. I have to admit, I wasn't supposed to go outside of the village, but I had to go see the world out here. That's basically when they find Jar Jar. But I think it's because you're an adventurer by nature. Isn't that right, Fina? Sure. Even more so than this guy, just kidding, just kidding. Hey, I know what. You guys should come see my village. I'm sure everyone there would give you a big welcome. And then it's like, remember that dude who went to like that isolated island with like inhabitants on it and he got like fucking arrowed to death immediately? He wanted to bring like God to them, I think. And they were like, nah. They'll do that to these guys. I like this one. Okay, let's go lead the way, room. Yeah, what was that? Eek. Oh, it's like the Scorpion from Resident Evil 0. The worst mainline entry. What was that? I'm gonna take a look. Oh no! It looks like new weapons. Are they chasing us? Yeah, they got fucking like stealth fighters now. Oh, I like those fucking explosive sprites. This is cute. Look, they're after us. Some soldiers are catching up on us. Oh no, what do we do, Justin? Bye! I climb up and meet them? Do I run away? Oh. I know, bitch! Take the fight to them. Oh, found you! Trying to escape, huh? Oh, that's what I should put on. Spaceballs. Hold you. It'd be cool if I could just pick who gets the second, like, attack, you know? Also, it'd be nice if I could see who they're fucking targeting. Oh, you whore! Well, at least that was a basic attack instead of the heavy blow. We didn't do heavy blow this time.
All right, we won.
We saved that for the next fight. Ah! You got me. Ah, there's nowhere to hide. Now behave yourselves. Fuck you! So no! Oh shit, she dodged it. Hell yeah, dude. Good job, girl. Yes, queen, slay. Filthy beast, you got me. You lousy. Oh, you got me. You mother, you got me. Found you. Okay, lightning squad, lightning star squad, attack! Taking a break. Nice, I'm gonna take a pee-pee break soon.
All right, we won.
How far until Sue levels up? Okay, we got 11, 11, and 9. Darn you, you got me. Sergeant Saki's gonna have my... I'm dying, I'm dying, I'm dead. Pride of the Bloody Rose Squad is at stake. We can't let you escape, so give up. Sergeant. Oh wait, these guys are different. You know what? Yeah.
Here goes.
Well, that wasn't bad. Good job, Sue. Ah! Oh, only 8? Okay, that's less than I was expecting. Yeah. Oh, wait, well... Okay, then Fina, and then other homeboy, you know, you're just gonna get a lucky hit. Okay, it's Justin. Okay, Justin has the most. This is fine. This works out. This is ideal.
Now you'll be okay.
Nice, nice. Got him. How can I face Sergeant Nana? Desert Moon Squad. This is it. Get ready. Charge! I waste all my fucking MP and SP. Yeah.
Here goes!
Oh, dude, Benicio del Toro's in this movie, and he's a fucking baby. He's like 20 something here. Yeah, it's been a while since I saw this movie. Yup.
Pretty easy.
I just looked over and I was like, damn, he's like young. I think I just got assigned to Sergeant Neo's unit. Bleh. Only fan C. I don't know what the C would stand for. Corporation. Oh wait. Let me equip it. What does that do? Emotional support. 15 action has 1 star. Honestly, bruh? Yeah, I'd much rather boost Justin. And then you get the... Damn, bro, you're slow. You get the patch. Ah, no. And then, what about armor? Do I need new armor? No, I don't. Shiz? No. Build. Alright, fine. Yeah, next up, I'll probably put on Goldfinger or Golden Eye. Great, the soldiers haven't made it to the engine room yet. I can bet they'll be on there. They'll be here soon. If we can just stay here, it won't get captured, Justin. Oh, look. When they get here, we'll just start whacking them as they come. Whack until they come. And if we need to, we can slam on the brakes. Okay, take this, you guys. Here come the brakes. Hold on, my chapstick's dead. I have to like dig for it like a raccoon. Dad, burn it. This is hard to move. Well, it wasn't hard earlier. What are you doing with that lever, Justin? Can't beat them just by using one lever, can we? Watch this. Okay, here it goes before they get here. What are you doing? You doing, Justin, my boy? Go faster, Slowpoke. We gotta catch them, catch up with them, and we'll show them a thing or two. What? Is Nana trying to get ahead of us? I won't let her do it. Alright, all of you listen up. Listen! You just get 100 lashes if you fall behind Nana or Saki squad. No way, Newton. Dude, I forgot all of this. Wayne Newton with like a little Cesar Romero mustache. Alright, we're doing it. Our unit is first. I guess we got the edge today. Wait a second, Saki, we've got the other stuff to worry about. What do you mean, Mio? Your unit got behind ours. What? They're not here? Where the fuck did they go? Don't just stand there. Go find them. Now! Aha, they fell for it. Wait, what are you doing? There you are, Justin. You got me there. Wait. You got me there back at base, but you're not gonna win this time. That's right. The three of us work together, you got triple power. Now, where's the animal? Where have you hit? Oh, the boy, the humanoid. Can't let the critter escape. Hey, we can handle that later. Nana, first, let's beat this fucker up. Okay, I figure I can deliver lightning speed kicker 2. What a coincidence. I figured I could do the same thing to you. Mina, Sue, now! Huh? What do you think you're doing? You can escape like that? Just a bunch of fucking stupid kids. You think you just have to put on the brakes and just come right up to us, you fools? That's right, the brakes. Hey, where's my brake lever? Oh yeah. Neener, neener, neener. That'll teach you to mess with me. You bitch! I broke the brake lever. Not only that, I stoked up that firebox getting high. Oh man, you're gonna kill them, dude. Justin, you're brilliant. Justin, you fucking psychopath. They just derail. And then this is like secretly a prequel to Unbreakable. It's no good. We have to just jump off. Baka! We're gonna jump off when we're this fast. Oh, that's still Valentine, dude. She fucking jumped off that train that was going like, I don't know, like a million miles an hour. I think it was going fast. Justin, just you wait. We're gonna get you, motherfucker! Kinda wanna hang out with the Angry Army chicks. They seem annoying. Wait. Okay. Oh, nice. You're doing the That's All, folks. Bang. Ah! the ditzy military chicks. They remind me of like YRP a little bit. Ah, how refreshing. And hey, did you see the expressions on their faces as they went towards certain doom and we derailed the fucking engine? You can bet they desperately trying to stop the train about now. Yeah, you fucking murdered them. Haha, that's hilarious. By the way, Rem, how far is it here from your village? How far is it to your village from here? From here? It's not far at all to Luke Village. Let's go there. What you say? I don't have a fucking choice, bruh. My god, the fog. Like that John Carpenter movie right now. This looks like, just look at this mist. It's like we're in a cloud of milk. Can't see what's in front of me. My dreams, I see that town. What should we do, Justin? Should we wait until the mist clears? Sure. Guess we should. We'll get lost in the mist if we keep going. Hey, it's okay. Us Luke Mountain folk, we never get lost in the mist. Watch this. Benicio del Toro, no! Awesome! You cleared away all that mist. Pretty cool, huh? Play this flute to let everyone in the village know that I've returned. Also in the village, there are odd nuts called mist clearing nuts. It's called post-nut clarity. So, let's go, everybody. My village is on the way. I think it's gonna suck. Ah, just wait a minute, Rim. He's gone. I guess he couldn't wait to get back to his village. Okay. So let's get going, too. We'll lose him if we don't hurry up. Yes! And, yes, with this is a good stopping point for tonight, at least. I think this is good for tonight. So, with all whopping 4 of my viewers, let's see who's live. This feels good. This feels right. late, streamed on a Monday. Hell yeah, dude. This is a win. All right, we got. Oh, Rin. What's Rin playing? Metroid Prime? Maybe. What else we got? Calamity 8. Where are you? The fuck are you? Let's be following you. And you're playing Destiny 2. Breezaholic is playing Ninja Gaiden 4. Breeze is cool. Friday is playing. Starlit is playing Red Dead Redemption 2. Let's play Rin. Let's raid Rin. Alright, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out. I had a good stream today. I think so. Probably no stream tomorrow. Stream on Wednesday, but Wednesday also starts my other side gig again, so it'll be at 9. I have a meeting at 8. I'll be a little late, but I do want to stream on Wednesday. And Thursday is most likely. Friday, we'll see. But we're gonna raid Rin. Rin XP underscore? Yeah. Underscore. Alright. Well, this was fun. I'm actually gonna look up and calculate how much more of this game I have. I'm just curious on where I am, you know? Like what the percentage mark would be. Extrapolate from there how much more I got. But thank you for hanging out. I hope you have a great rest of your night. I'll see you later on this week. Oh yeah, Jay, if you're here, let's do Outbreak on Thursday. Ah! My hair's stuck in my fucking bracelet. Okay. Nice. All right, peace out, everybody. See ya.